Welcome to Inference and Incense, where insight meets intuition when a rational bows to the ritual, and the data always have something to say. We, two data scientists, exploring one big questions each week, taking turns surprising each other with a mystery guest and a live reading. Each week, our questions is equal parts over-analysis and random curiosity. This one starts something like this. All right, Lucy. So today I really want to talk about something that very personal to our story. And I think that being young immigrants coming to America, being women working in the tech industry, I think that we're both really good at something. And I want to get into the root cause on why that is for me is the art of letting go. And taking a step back, I think it really made us who we are, and it really allowed us to have that superpower and growing in this industry. And it was not an easy thing, but I think it really allowed me to grow and grow fast in especially the tech industry. I'm very curious, how has it been for you?
Yeah, I think there's so much we need to unpack here, and I can totally resonate with it. And then I'd love to think about like letting go isn't so much about losing something you have, but it's all about making space for what wants to emerge.
I think there's a lot of neuroscience study behind it. Your brain, when learning about a new mindset, framework, and letting go of the old one, is literally rewired itself. And I think this is very personal to both of us. Like I said, being Asian, female, coming to a culture like the American, and one of the most dynamic and difficult Western culture to assimilate to.
Absolutely, especially for you. You came here at such a young age. I think you were here like when you were 13. How does it even like look like for you having to let go of everything at such a young age?
It was weird. Everything was weird. Like people didn't know how to pronounce your name. You have to constantly correct them. Happy, but it also like a little bit of a resentment. Like, did I make the right decision coming to America? It was not as shocking as of an, as I expected from that kind of experience. And I think my goal from day one was very clear of going to an American college, hopefully landing a working visa right after graduations and getting to work in America right away, making the big money. So I think the goal was very clear for me from day one, and I didn't really allow any room for failure. So anything that don't add to the success track, it's get removed immediately. I think it's just thinking about that is kind of helping the fact that I didn't have a lot of close immediate family members in the States. So there was not a lot of room for potential failure in any aspect for me.
That's interesting because you sounded like a 30-year-old man instead of 13 at that age with a very mature system where you want to go. And then that itself kind of like made you let go of a lot of concerns, like worrying about you couldn't fit in to stay focused on your goal. But to some extent, it kind of like locked us in one system too, right? And then the naming thing is very universal. And I still remember that even my husband, boyfriend at the time, he said, "Oh, I just call you by your English name because that's so much easier." And then a lot of us chose to have English name as new identity. But now thinking back, why did we even do that, right? Because your name carries so much about you. Why do we even let go of that, trying to like fit into the culture?
Like for me, yes, it did bug me a little bit, being so young and my name is so common in Vietnam, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, how hard is it to pronounce my name? It's not that hard. Um, and I think just like it happens so much and so often, and when everything else is higher importance in your prioritization, you have to really figuring out, okay, is it important enough for me to be mad about it for the next minute or so? Or am I just gonna get used to my, new English name? And it was kind of a funny story about my name too. It's like my first name and last name are so common in Vietnamese culture. When I taken my middle school and my high school entry exam, there were 6 classes full of 40 different girls who have the exact same first name and last name as me. So in a way, when people was like, "Oh, you should go with Jen," I'm like, "Great! I'm so happy to go with something else than my real name." So.
Well, that's good. There's always a different perspective you can take it, right? So, what else did you have to let go other than your name?
I think the communication is a huge thing, and I don't mean vocabulary. Yes, of course, but beyond the natural communication challenges, I think the how of the communication is also difficult for me in Vietnam, and I'm guessing that it is similar in China. Authority figure means a lot to not only cultural norms but also its automatic respect. The elderly carry an immediate authority in the conversations, and I think I was a little bit taken back when the classroom in America is highly welcoming outspoken people, any questions at all. And I think they had this thing of no dumb questions belief. And to be honest with you, that is the one thing that I don't like to this day. There's definitely dumb question. You should always do your reading and homework before coming to class so that you don't waste everyone else's time by asking the dumb question.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that was probably my first cultural shock when I came here, just how you behave in the classroom, right? Because again, like you said, we're trained to respect authorities and then like being quiet and nice and then like think twice or think 3 times before you behave or take actions. There's
We have
literally
that
a
saying in
saying.
Vietnam too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You roll your tongue 9 times before you say something.
exactly. And now you came to United States, everyone's speaking up like so loudly and then making their points heard. But I'm like, oh, there's no point of doing that. And then, because in my culture, you are rewarded by thinking silently, and silence is gold. And then now we have to lose our native patterns and then rewire our minds.
So now, I mean, obviously, I've been in America for so long, more than half of my lifetime so far. And I think, there is this innate belief that you represent your family name. So how I carry and represent myself in a classroom, the questions I raise, the answer that I give, not only represent me as an individual, it represents my mother and my father as well. So it's a very heavy weight, I think, from being Vietnamese coming to America. It's a very heavy weight Asians carry into societal engagement. Like you read the room heavily and you read it again before you decided to engage in a specific manner. And you better for sure that you keep face really is a concept in Vietnamese. You keep face not only for yourself, for the group of dynamic that you conversing with, and also for the family. That's not even part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's so funny you say the face because we have exactly same th saying as a losing face. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm worrying about like every day in a classroom, in a meeting setup, like professional setting as well, right? Because everything you do represents not just you. And then you even think about like largely, it's like, oh, I'm Chinese. Am I losing face of my entire race?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Like, oh my God, there's only one Vietnamese girl in the entire high school. If I'm saying something stupid, do they think all Vietnamese people are stupid then?
Exactly. It's like you are fitting to the stereotype
Yeah.
in their imagination, but by doing so, like even enhance that like perception, right? I'm still like thinking back on my like first job out of school here. Like I was worrying like so much about every word I say, not even just every sentence, worrying about my accent, I'm not pronouncing certain things right, and then every single mistake, I'm like, oh my gosh, the sky is collapsing. I'm losing the face of my my like entire job, my entire company, and then the Chinese essentially like, why are we even carrying so much weight?
Yeah. And I think both Chinese and Vietnamese, the big portions of Asian culture, Buddhism is a very common religion. And I think in Buddhism, our relationship with silence is highly spoken of and highly thought of. And I think in Vietnamese, we actually don't have one single word for silence. We have many different words for silence, and it depends on the subtext, depends on the emotion. You use different word of silence, and like I think it's just reflecting how specific our culture and conversational nuance that you have to navigate. Because using the different word for silent, because you're trying to communicate your feeling and your emotion, and you only have one word, and it doesn't really translate. So that's why, like in Vietnamese, sometimes it's a very short sentence, and it convey a lot of emotions and expectation out of that short sentence. And I think in American language, in order for me to say something in the same meaningful way, I have to say maybe like two or three times much longer than what I would have said in Vietnamese.
That's so true. I think even thinking back, right? Every time I think in meeting, like people will comment me as like Lucy, why are you so t silent? Because they would think I'm a smart person, but I don't speak up, right? And then even back in the classroom, I have to kind of like change my behavior or my nature a little bit just to get the participation score. Because if you don't speak up, you don't get that points
Yeah.
to get a straight A, and that's a failure
Yeah. There's,
itself.
there's no participation trophy in Vietnamese. You actually get negative points deducted if you outspoken. And believe it or not, when I was in seventh grade, I actually get a behavioral card that I spoke way too much in class. So speaking too much is not a good thing in general. And I think one more thing about language that is beautiful in Vietnamese too is that you speak not only for yourself, but you speak for your partner, your coworker. So you have to practice more active listening, even so that whatever you say is incremental, value added to the conversation already. And I think that counterpoint in America, that the culture highly rewards echoing. So when you say something and then another person champion on top of it and then echoing your point, it's a positive thing. But in Vietnamese, people would say, well, it's said already. You don't need to say it again. Okay, got it. Moving on. But I think like that is almost 180 opposites of my culture too.
That's so funny now you pointed out. I was like, oh, I saw I'm not adapting to American culture. It's just a process of learning. Because I think in the beginning, when I first entered like the professional world, it's like, why do we have to make so many small talks?
Yeah.
That doesn't help at all. But actually it does, like when you build relationships. And also the thing you said about echoing, because I think I went through a lot of like communication training. So it's like, oh, we always start with we agree with your point of
Mhm.
view,
Yeah.
but then blah blah blah. I saw that was such a waste of time. But now but
Yeah,
now I notice I speak that way too because
exactly.
again, we need to survive in a Western culture. So we need to adopt a lot of these. like letting go of our old patterns.
Yeah. And nonverbal agreement is not enough in our workspace. And I have been told so many times of being too stoic, too expressionless. And they have to check in with me of like, oh, why are you not smiling? And I'm like, I'm agreeing with you. Because I think, like if you ever watch a recording of a meeting that you're part of a group, I think the general norm is that people nod heavily and thumbs up and thumbs down and then shaking their head. But yeah, for my culture, being micro expressions is a sign of respect.
I think I'm better than you in that because I'm trying, like, I think that's kind of my nature. That goes back to when it's part of nature, it's kind of like easier to make that shift
Yeah.
to be more adaptive because, it's almost aligning with your, like, inner patterns.
Yeah, for entering the professional stage. So, I think the cultural assimilation is one aspect of it, but even choosing the major in college, it was survival or failure for me from day one. You don't really entertain things that don't grant a STEM H-1B visa for you. So arts is like out of the window right away. You can only do math, general science, or technology at that time. And I think picking up at the same time soft skills and then hard technical skill, it was a lot.
Yeah, but then that actually making the choices much easier, right? Because then if you have a focused goals, then you can choose let go of certain things that's not so important versus you're staying focused on things that really matters. So I think that's actually a good strategy to some extent.
I mean, definitely there was no factor of like emotional happiness or um I'm doing it because I'm doing it for fun. I'm taking a leap year after my graduation because I just want to see the world. None of that was part of the decision equations. And when I got my first job, it was around the time the evolutions of data and data applications changed every year to the point that whatever I was learning, the language that I was coding in class to the language of my first job to the language of the second year of my first job changed 3 times within that horizon.
Yeah, especially in our field. Do you still remember SAS or R? I spent so many years picking that up.
I definitely remember in that SAS was very difficult. R was very common and easy enough to pick up. But yeah, SAS was a very non-intuitive language. And I think if you and I in the data science fields, do you even remember how many times they've changed the major of data science or, be that no company generally agrees the role and functionality of a data scientist to this day.
Totally. I think at my time, there was not even such a major, but as the technology or demand grows, and then there's data science major everywhere, but the definition, description, and then the courses of it, it's all different. They have different focuses, but that's why making me think we need to be very adaptive and also like letting go of things of essentially that fixed mindset. Because even if you look at our job, or any job, not even data scientist job, the job description versus what you actually do on your day-to-days are can be vastly different. So it requires us to constantly shift our mindset.
In the recent 2 years, coding nowadays is AI assisted coding, right? And now the biggest and newest thing is vibe coding. You actually don't even code. And I think there's a lot of, developers that on the team or like teams that I work with is still resisting heavily the idea of AI assisted in coding because, they hanging on to the belief and the control that, well, it cannot be as good as the quality of the code that I myself create.
Yeah, exactly. Even myself, I think even till this day, I still think about my glorious SAS days because they named a logic after my name because I developed that whole thing in my previous job. And then no one was ever allowed to touch that logic because it got broken once. And then I think just a lot of developers, like me, had that experience is that I had success with certain technical skill set. Now, why would I ever change it, right? Because I've seen success with it. I have belief on mine. But now with that AI, it's almost disruptive. And then do I trust it? Do I not trust it? By adopting it, does it like almost disapprove myself? So that's very hard to do.
Yeah. And I think the key thing for me in this very technical aspect is that I, when approaching a model, for example, nowadays I'm very open to the how. Like, what methodology would I use? What AI assistant would I use for coding? Is it Claude or is it ChatGPT? But I think one thing that I'm holding very firm is like, what is the goal that I'm coming out of this? What does a model do? And what do I want to get out of it as like concrete deliverable?
Yeah, I think that's ultimate, right? Because a lot of times we're letting go of things because we want to achieve different goals. And then sometimes we're holding on to things because we're too attached to our original goals.
Then I'm curious. So, if we spoke about how letting go has been so crucial to our success, being immigrants in America, to being female and highly male dominated tech industry, to an ever-changing data science as the field. So why do you think that people having such a hard time in general of letting go?
I think for most, it's our ego because we kind of like attach to our identity, right? This is who I am. Like I'm a data scientist. I had a track record of making certain models by certain techniques. So I hold on to that because I have control of it. So that's what I think.
I mean, also, like, if you think about, whatever you learn has worked out quite well for you, right? Just like an algorithm, it's predicting the past, really. And it's easier to, and more convenient to use something that you know so well and worked out so well for you in the past and replicate it in the now moment. And so I think in addition to ego, it's also that aspect of that learned trial and error that they have gone through and they felt like they master already. So why change? And the change become more of a threat, in a sense that, well, it's challenging all of the prior's probability of things that you already master in the past.
Exactly. Your day-to-day experience essentially cast a vote into who you are and who you want to be. It enhances it, right? It becomes part of your ego or the I, and then it builds these elaborative stories about who we are based on the past achievement, like our roles, possessions, and then letting go. It's like a death to the ego, or I'm dead, and that's scary itself.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like, you molting out of your shell. And I've seen it over and over again, is that very talented technical IC have a hard time transitioning into a technical leader because they hang on so much to the control of the technical requirement that they should have, when in a new role, they should have lose that control in order to make sure that their team have the room and the space to fail and then to learn with intentions.
Totally, because the technical field is their comfort zone, right? Because they're living and breathing the air. I think that's also, it's kind of like there's pros and cons about it because they're so good at it and they can still be successful to some extent. The thing is, it almost becomes autopilot. So they don't put too much thinking about it. And then essentially they might stop growing. Say, if we never transitioned from SAS to Python, how can we still have a job today? And then I want to ask you, like you transitioned from a IC to a leader, right? what kind of shifts do you have to make?
I think that going back to the thing that I was saying is that you have to be comfortable of letting your team grow. And there's no growing without failing. And leading a team, you ultimately are accountable for their failure as well as their success. But you have to make enough space for them to fail so that they learn it themselves. Because otherwise, then they always would have been fully dependent on you, what you ideate, what you design for the roadmap. And I think you have to build that trust because your team doesn't want to fail either. Like, I mean, they have a boss that they want to prove themselves and they want to get promotion to. So having them the the space to fail doesn't naturally mean that they will go through with it. You have to really encourage them to be outside of their comfort zone, trying things that they never done before, learning new technology within the industry, and be comfortable and encourage them to learn and to fail with the intention, again, is to grow at the end of it.
Yeah, that's so true. You're managing almost by not managing, right? Letting go a lot of like controls, but really have people to have the autonomy and decide where they want to be.
Yeah, and I think like if and I want to be empathetic of like a lot of where, including ourselves nowadays, it's a very different century. I know it's decades, but it's a very different century than how your parents and my parent was in the workplace. We don't make a few hundreds of decisions on a daily basis nowadays. We make in a tens of thousands decisions, and I think it's just a heavy cognitive load on the current generation in general.
That sounds really overwhelming. I wonder why, right? Because it almost makes sense that it's easier for us just to stay status quo. And it's our nature to resist change if we have to make so many decisions all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about like predictions, when the model overwhelmed with new information, what does it do? It defaults to old decisions because it's faster, it's more convenient, it's proven success before. And I think if you think about that, if you have to constantly throughout the day to stop and recalibrate and looking at pros and cons of everything that you do in order to decide your decision, it is quite stressful.
Oh, totally. Now I think about Marie Kondo, the physical decluttering. Because if you notice, I think there's something to notice about all the high-tech leaders, like from Mark Zuckerberg to Steve Jobs, right? They always wear the same uniform. So I think that to some extent is kind of like letting go by simplifying a lot of like life decisions so they don't have to like hold on to or spend time on those unimportant decisions. I think I want to switch over to solutions. How do we overcome this?
Yeah, and I think that's tough, right? It's so general and so generic. How do you shape the reflection questions? How do you reshape your mindset?
Yeah, because as Buddha says, like everything's suffering because the only permanent thing is impermanent. And then that's represents every decision we make every day, like every thought, every breath we take in. It's just impermanent. And then that's why we're suffering all the time. And then attaching to certain patterns makes it really hard for us.
Yeah, I like that you bring Buddhism into the mix. Growing up as part of the Buddhist culture, and then shifting gear to the Western culture. Sometimes I forget be comfortable with change is a thing that was beaten in our religions. And the only way that you can get comfortable with change is to expect it. And if it does happen, you looked at it with fresh eyes and with a new perspective and welcome it. And, that's what the brain imaging from studying people doing meditations and being in deep therapy, it does shows that, when they in such state, there are increased activity in the prefrontal cortex as well as decreased in the amygdala area.
That's true. So essentially, it's more of a paradigm shift. We are not changing the reality itself. We're changing the way we react to it. So our reality essentially changes. And then, so now I can relate to like all those awakened ones saying, hey, what do you do after you are enlightened? And then they say, chop wood, carry water. That's exactly same as what they did before. So it all makes sense. It's more of the mindset changes and the way you see the world changes.
Yeah, and it became actually no longer about letting go and hanging on less, also less of the future and just being in the moment. How am I perceiving things that happening to me today? And what truly is meaningful to me at this moment? And lesser about, feeding the energy to your ego, less about what does my title desire. It's so much less about the past and the future. And I think it's constantly bringing you back to the present. So when you're in the present, there's really no need to let go, right? Like you're not letting go of your identity and your ego of the future. You are just observing things as it happening.
Wow, that's profound. Because by staying at the present, like all your problems kind of like disappear because they don't exist. And then by trying to hold on to the past or cling to the future, it's a false sense of control because we can never, right? How could you? So the
And
only
it's a
way, yeah,
it's a much simpler of a mechanism to live by, right? Like if you remove all of the baggage of your ego expectation from the past and the future, the decision making process from the present is very pure and it's very simple.
yeah. So like every problem actually have a very simple answer. Then we don't have to like try so hard to come up with solutions because then itself becomes like overwhelming or maybe even the wrong objective to chase after.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this in my personal and also professional experience too, is that sometimes in the moment, it's really hard to parse the now questions and the ego questions because, the feeling is so convoluted. Am I doing this because it's good for the company and because it's something that I want to do? Or is it something that I'm doing because it's good for my next promotion and it's good for my credibility in the future when people think of me and I'm this expert and that expert? It is really difficult to parse the answer. And that's why I was saying in a second ago is that, if you truly bring it back to the now, the answer is very pure and it's a much simpler decisions. And my experience and the example I was going to say is that I'm jumping on a project because I'm genuinely excited about it. It may be also true that it will be good for my next promotions and my next credibility, but in this moment, I know it is impactful for the business if I do this, and it just also bring me a lot of joy from the technical development.
Right. I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Because essentially we're trying to detach from the final result, but we still have a goal. And then we're asking a lot of questions about ourselves, like in terms of what we really feel, what we really want at this moment, instead of, I think, like trying to overthink to be so attached to a remote thing you probably set up a long time ago.
So how do we recap the kind of questions that is useful to enable the thinking in the now?
Yeah, here's my framework. If I have to generalize a little bit, like, what do you truly desire? What do you really, really want? Ask your
But
heart,
but
listen to your heart.
but that's confusing in a sense because the truly desire, again, not only feeding the now, but it's also feeding the ego of the past and the future.
That can work too. I actually like what Marie Kondo uses. It feels a little bit naive, but it works for me every time. Because I'm not sure if you watch any of her episode. So when a client or anyone trying to face a decision whether to let go or hold on to things, she asked, "Does it spark my joy?"
Mm,
So I think same thing with when we're trying to make a decision. Do I have to do this project? Do I have to make this commitment? Or
mm.
should I make this move? Does it spark joy? So it goes beyond the surface value of a promotion because you are really assessing your value system, right? Like at the end of the day, does it bring the joy for me? Like, does money bring me joy? Probably no, right? But then, like everyone loves money, a lot of people chase after that, but it's not the answer for happiness. So ultimately, I'm thinking like human goals are happiness that's everyone's chasing after, essentially.
And it's amazing how we keep forgetting because think about it. There have been countless of idioms, sentences, sayings that already relaying the point that you just made. Things like, do what you love so that you never work for the rest of your life. It has been repeated over and over again, but I think it's just so hard to remember that. And I like that. Does it spark joy? It's a very simple questions that always trying to bring it back to something in the moment, but something that rings true throughout.
Exactly. Because it makes sense to take a break sometimes just to reflect back who you really are instead of who you are trying to be.
All right, Lucy. All of these talking about letting go. It's time to read about our guest, Kaya.
Let's do it. Mystic mirror time.
All right, I think we should do two questions. One is about what kind of a person, characteristic, persona traits for the first card. And I think maybe the second card is what are some of her obstacle currently?
Like, why is she coming to us?
I
What kind
guess
of
so.
question? Yeah,
I guess
something
so.
like that.
Yeah, we could do
Yeah.
that.
All right. I got the first card out.
Okay, I got my second card. Go for it.
So the first card I got is a celebration card. So that if that's representing her traits, I'm guessing she's a very passionate people because it's Wands card representing like passion for something like passionate and also like lively, energetic. And also she's very friendly because it's a card with a lot of people, like partying, things like that. So she's quite fun, passionate, lively, and energetic.
I got all that glitter and
Party girl.
I think she always bring warmth and brightness whenever she enters a room. But what it also sounds to me is that I think there are two aspects of our guest. One aspect is the exterior that I think people enjoy being with her. And the other aspect is maybe she doesn't always resonate with all of that brightness and warmth underneath of it. Um,
Yeah, I think that speaks a lot too, because my card shows a lot of people, not just individual, right? So I think she's always putting herself out for her friends and then for her coworkers, for other people. Maybe deep down she's looking for someone else, but it doesn't change the fact. I think she's very warm and then like again, happy people.
yeah, yeah, very bright. A lot of sunshines and all of that glitter. Interesting. I think that ties really well to my second card. I got a never-ending story, a struggling person fighting against the sand clock. So potentially she is in another cycle that I think she caught herself feeling that um, this may not be another right situations that she's in.
Very interesting. So I got a very opposite card as her personality card, and then very similar than what you get. The card I
Mhm.
got is a Five of Cups. So if you know the card, this is a man or a woman in like dark and then looking very sad. And then this card associates with disappointment, loss, and grief.
Interesting. And I think the five is a changing state. It's
Exactly.
between 0 and 10. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the middle stage stands for transformation.
Yeah.
So I think right now she's probably emotionally struggling about her current situation,
Mm.
whether she's going through a loss of a professional stuff or maybe even personal, because again, this is like grieving a little bit, like focus on negativity almost. So
It's
let's
very
see. Yeah.
interesting. I'm curious of what Kaya is going to ask us for the questions today. Our guest of the day is someone that we had the pleasure and the honor of working with. She is now the director of product for growth for games and live events at Netflix. I'm happy to introduce and welcome to our episode today is Kaya Patel.
Hello.
Hi, it's a long time. My
Sorry, I was trying to download Zoom. I don't have Zoom on this laptop, so I feel like I've been living in like the Zoom download universe before I got joined in. But it's so good to see you both.
Yeah, how have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you both?
Before you joined, we actually touched a little bit about how both Lucy and I are Asians, female. We both came to the States pretty early on, like young adults, and how I think now reflecting back, thinking of what are some of the core skill sets that help us integrate in this society, and then being in a very male dominated industry. And we kind of circulated around how we got so comfortable with letting go of a lot of things,
Mm.
be it cultural, personal beliefs, to in the tech industry. Do you have a similar story?
To some extent, yes. Mostly because similar to both of what you're saying, being Asian and then being a woman in tech or in product, especially at most of the places I've worked at, has forced you to have to assimilate in certain ways. So yes, that definitely resonates. And sometimes that is being able to use similar language to other people and echo it that way. Other times it's not making yourself stand out too much or being able to just do the work or be able to perform in a way that's what people expect, if not exceeding that. So, yes, it definitely resonates. But I think some of it is also, for me, at least in being a product manager and up until my current role, almost in all of the other roles, it was many more guys or men who are like managers, leaders, etc. So I think it's also a dynamic around sometimes gender. And in most situations, I would say having the right manager helps a lot. But in certain situations, it might be other dynamics at play, or you're diminishing, increasing your visibility because of certain reasons as well.
I mean, in Vietnamese, we have a saying, and I love when you said trying to belong. In Vietnamese, we have a saying like the nail that stands out the most get hammered
Mm,
the hardest.
yeah, yeah.
So, I think it's a funny thing being Asians and how, your accent slowly get changed, how you conduct yourself in meetings. Uh, Yeah, it's all very interesting on how continuously I think we just shedding a little bit of a layer of ourselves.
Yeah.
And now I think in the age of AI, it's
Mm,
very weird vibe coding all the time because you feel like you're losing control a little bit.
mm, yeah.
All right, so I think Kaya, we have just a little bit of a curiosity. How has this skill set has helped you in your workplace, being in a leadership role?
Yeah, and the skill set of being able to kind of let go, shed things when needed, assimilate when needed, all of that. Yeah. I would say how it's helped in the workplace is it typically, at least for me, allows me to kind of just focus usually on the work, the people, not hold things like grudges or um, anchor down on those too much, versus at the end of the day, allow me to just say, based on who's here, how much they're trying and or delivering, and even myself setting different strategy, product roadmaps, things like that, that it at the end of the day, letting go or seeing like what do you actually have control over versus what does everyone else around you have control over versus other things that are not even in anyone's control at times, I think allows at least me to have perspective around you can only do so much day to day. So you and like quarter to quarter in different workplaces. So in order to actually allow yourself some grace, giving a little bit of that kindness to yourself and letting go of things that don't really help or serve, or like I said, grudges, allows things to be easier day to day in my perspective, because you're not really needing to control everything or play out every outcome or redo different things. All you can do is what you really have oversight over day to day, and for the foreseeable future, usually.
And you said that's something that you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, right now, as I've mentioned, at least to you, Jen, and then Lucy, you probably know this as well, where I'm at Netflix right now. But before this, I was at 23andMe as a product manager and led our growth, engagement, and monetization functions there. But there, that's a pretty clear example where there were so many things outside of my control, and day to day, I was thinking more on what do I have control over? What can I change in terms of our metrics? What can I change in terms of launches or convincing other people or in some of our reviews that we have? And that I think allows me to stay rooted for my team and even for people cross functionally that I'm working with, when so many other things day to day in that environment, at least, were ones that you had little control over, whether that was our board, our CEO, different decision making areas that would happen. So that was definitely a day to day exercise that I still even think about in my current role, or even in like weekends, personal life, where, like I said, you don't have control over everything. So it's more around what you directly can influence and see as like top one thing, two things, three things that you can do in a certain timeline that you yourself would feel proud of, rewarded around, show impact around, which is how I try to focus my time.
Yeah, it's interesting now hearing you saying everything. It feels letting go is a synonymous as prioritization, which
Yeah.
is often mentioned as a core skill set required by PM, right? Because letting go of the control and then helps us to prioritize one or two items really matters. And then actually in your control to keep us like stay focused on the
Mhm.
most important tasks. And that's what your day-to-day is about.
Yeah, that is actually, yeah, that's a pretty astute observation, Lucy. And that it is, I think, yes, as a product manager, that's definitely the case. I think it's the case for several other roles, but I do think if I allowed myself to have all 10 to 100 things orbiting around me at all times versus just solidly what I do believe needs to be most critical, it would cause overwhelm, not just for me, but again, for the team that I lead or for other people that I work with. If they're focused their attention on so many different things that are on my mind versus trying to be as clear as possible around the top few things that we need to do that week or that quarter or that year as our goals that we set out for. And that allows it to be trickled down into the day to day, as Jen was asking previously, too.
I mean, I now that you said it, I reflect the time that we crossed paths, Kaya, and the number of, I think times that you really stand hard on a few things that your team would only do for that quarter and constantly pushing back. And I remember our exchange was like, why do we want to push back? Can we build a solid case that we don't want to pursue that way? I think that's amazing. And I think that your team has always could reside, their confidence in you because they know for sure that your priority is really having not only just their back and their time allocations, but also what is the right thing? What is a few small right things to do that quarter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the thing for me that sometimes is difficult is if those change in timelines that you cannot really control as a leader. So by that, what I mean is, again, if I'm thinking of the control spheres of things that I have control over versus others versus things that no one has control over, really, when something that you think might work well in a quarter, like if I'm thinking back to our Headspace days together, Jen, if I'm thinking of something like a free trial experiment or something, yes, we have control over that, but if something else comes in out of nowhere, which was maybe a partnership that we were going to do with someone or people who are really big and the team has to swarm around that, that becomes what's the priority and you have to let go of what was more important or what you thought you would be doing that quarter and bring it back X amount of months later or years later. But that type of reorientation and at least being very clear around this is now the priority or the top thing versus what was happening 3 weeks ago is something I think is critical. Otherwise, if you're playing in that limbo, again, people can't really be able to do their work as productively as possible, and it infringes then I think a lot onto your mental load, your personal load, all of it then.
How do you balance? So I think you said that you are now product leader at Netflix, and knowing Netflix, and I think my follow-up is that, they change often.
Mhm.
They play outside of the rules more than any other tech company. Um, how do you balance that, and when does it come as an advantage for you?
Yeah. Uh, so in terms of I don't know if I fully agree that they play outside of the rules more than any other tech company, but they do, yeah, play outside of the rules, have their own like norms, their own culture, all of this other playbook that they have compared to other tech companies. I think the way I lean into it, or some of the advantages on my side, is I think in knowing enough about the culture, being able to assimilate enough into a culture like Netflix, but then still bring my own ways of operating, which again are things around how I think of control, how I think about the top priorities versus doing everything in 1 week, areas like that, which many folks on my team within the larger product and larger Netflix org have operated in that way previously is one that I don't know will be fully scalable long term without there being aspects of, say, like burnout or people feeling so overwhelmed or not being staffed, operating pretty lean, all of those types of things, which have worked so far. But I do think as Netflix is now going more into new content areas like live content, games, all Netflix House, and these in-person versus on-platform experiences, being able to do some of those things about letting go, letting the right things bubble up is something that I think product leaders will need to embrace at the organization and something that I have felt pretty strongly about too.
Just curious, is there like, do you think female leaders are more flexible than male leaders in terms of letting go?
In terms of letting go.
Letting go of ego
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, if I'm thinking not just of ego, but aspects of growth, learning, self-reflection, and those types of qualities, if I overgeneralize, then yes, I think women sometimes do care or nurture or set up teams in that way. But I have now also met several leaders who are men who grasp that, understand that, but I see that more at, I would say, like leadership levels or higher levels. I don't know if I always see that at individual contributor level product managers, and I think it really depends on people's experiences, honestly. And if I was to overgeneralize, yes, I would probably agree with you, Lucy. But I know that might not be fair to like the handful or like the 3, 4 men product managers that I'm thinking of who have been able to operate in a way that I've been surprised about from like a letting go perspective, or being able to lead with pretty low ego and high self-reflection or awareness on previous feedback that they've gotten, similar to what I've seen in other product leaders who are women or myself or others as well. So I think it, again, pretty heavily depends, and probably depends on the organization as well too.
All right, so I think Kaya, moving on to our next part.
Yep.
So just a quick summary of like how do we go about it. You can ask any questions. We pull the card,
Yeah.
and individually, Lucy used a different set than mine. You don't have to give specifics at all. Just generalize enough information that we may clarify and reframe the questions.
Okay. Yeah.
Not vague, but you should still be asking questions that you care about.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Don't ask about the next elections or anything that's new, but yeah.
Yes, that is fair. Okay. I have two top of mind ones. One that's more personal, one that's more work and professional. Should I start with one over the other, or does it matter?
Your call.
Okay, let me start with the personal one then. That one is related to furry friends like Rambo on your side, Jen, or Lucy. I don't know if you have a dog or any animals or anything like that. Okay. The question that I have is if basically still trying to determine, even with my husband or partner, when and or if we'll think about dogs. And for me, I'd like to have a better sense of that, and if that's on the horizon, if that's decades away, if that's not really in the cards, and we're fine without them and being like foster dog parents, which we do with my uncle and things like that. That's something I'm curious about.
I
So
can
that's
always send more pictures of Rainbow.
exactly.
If that helps. I feel like that is our history.
It is.
Text message. But okay. So I think should we narrow it to like, do you prefer 3 years, 5 years, or 1 year? Like, what is your preference of horizon?
Yeah, I think that's let's see. So will we have a dog and or some other furry animal pet situation within the next, yeah, let's do like 2 years or so.
Okay. All right.
Instead of like asking, will you? I think we should ask if Kaya get a pet, like say get a dog. Like what does she feel, or what does she and her husband feel? Like separately can be as well. Because I think based on your question, you already want to get a dog. It's more of
You know, it's a leading question.
exactly, like would you be happy? Because that's what we care about. Because
Yeah.
essentially we care about how you feel about that event.
Mm.
So also it sounds like you're more interested in a dog than other fairy pet.
That's true. So we can be clear around that. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Basically, emotions around what having a dog might look like then
Exactly.
within a couple years.
Yeah. If Kale get a dog in the next 2 years, will she be happy?
Yeah.
2 cards, one for Kay and one for Nikhil.
Yeah.
All right. I got my cards. Lucy, do you want to go?
You can go first.
All right. So I think my first interpretations, I got building blocks. So I think it's just a part of chaos being chaos planner. And I think it's just Kaya thinking about the next stage. So I think you're ready. I think you thought about this. You planned it out. For Nikhil, I got, to be fair, with a lady and an owl as a size of a wisdom. So I think he's more not on the fence, but I think he's just weighing the pros and cons. Potentially, it could be the increment could be countered by responsibility, time investment. I think be it that it's not as investing as the child, but I still think there's a lot of time, emotional, and knowing, having a pit bull and going through classes and training, it's a lot. So I do think that you are both seriously considering it, and I think you are a lot more ahead of the planning than Nikki.
Mhm.
Yeah. On my side, for Kea, I got Wheel of Fortune, which is major arcana in the tarot system. So I think you're not taking this lightly. You consider this as a life-change event. So very serious card. And that it might be life-changing for you in that sense, right? Because you probably consider your pet as your child. That's why the Wheel of Fortune like came out. And then on the partner side, I got Eight of Coins. So this is a apprentice or someone who's working really hard towards something. And then also it's a money card. So your partner is probably thinking it's going to cost a lot of money. And then he is probably willing to spend that much money.
Mm.
And
The
then
amount of toys that you invest. Oh
exactly.
my God. Okay.
And
Pet
it is a
insurance, all
very,
of
yeah, a very clear male card, like working very hard. So I'm guessing if you truly get a dog, he's taking a lot of major responsibilities.
yeah.
And that's what probably he's concerned about. If he has any concern, like I'm going to do all the work.
Oh,
That's good to
well,
know.
the answer is a yes.
Okay.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Okay,
All
should I
right.
switch to my professional one?
Let's do it.
Okay. So this one is by the end of next year. So fast forward, say 14 months, 18 months at in my current role, so in a product lead role at Netflix, what are the major emotions I'll carry at that point? And the reason I'm asking that is because right now I'm still in like I'm about to reach, I think, my 6 month in my current role. So I'm personally curious about, compared to this first 6 months with any new job, that's a fair amount of learning curve, all of that adjustment. What might things look like if I fast forward 1 year from now?
All
Will
right.
it still be similar emotions to what I hold now? Will it be something different? What's on the horizon?
It's a very well stated problem statement as a product manager. December 2026. What
Yes,
emotional state?
exactly. What do I have to look forward to? What can I put on my OKRs for next year?
You can hold us accountable.
Yeah.
Wow, this is very interesting. So I got the same card. When you asked about the dog, I got building blocks again.
Ah,
So I think emotional states is definitely a part of your planning. And I think how things have always turned out, knowing you in your
yeah.
profession states, you're very ahead of the game. And I think you've always been very curated of your reality. And I think you get exactly what you planned for. Possibly also a dog.
But all at once, which will be great.
What I got is a Knight of Cups. So this depicts a young man sitting on a horse holding a cup.
Hmm.
I
That is
think,
very interesting, Lucy. Just sorry to interject. I was using that deck earlier and I just drop a card thinking of chaos state. No questions before everyone joins. I got that card.
yeah, because
Curious. All right, let's go.
yeah, we definitely need to do a recap because we also did a reading like before you join the show. So definitely see a connection there. So I'll just give you a peek of what I do before you join.
Hmm.
And then I actually drew the card. It's a Five of Cups. So
Hmm.
now it all connects. I didn't know you started a like new job like almost 6 months ago. It all makes sense. And then that card depicts a man a little bit sad. I think maybe you're like emotional, a little bit like intense and stressful about your new job, which is common for everyone.
Yeah.
Not to mention it's a super competitive environment, and also cup in the tarot system is a strong emotion. It
Hmm.
represents emotional. And then now it's in the same line, it's a Knight of Cups. And then this time, this man is calmer. And
Hmm.
also, he's in control because he's riding the horse,
Yep.
driving, and also horse in a lot of Asian cultures
Hmm.
stands for like speed and
Mhm.
like reaching the goal, things
Hmm.
like that. Thinking about the chariot.
Yeah.
like horses are driving that, and then also you're holding the cup instead of before, like, or the current situation, you're looking at the cups. Now you're holding the cup, looking forward, and then so I think that's a quite positive card on the horizon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that visual too, to look forward to over this next year.
So, to tell you the before story, so it's a cycle of never-ending story,
Mm,
where the person is continue thinking into a sand clock, really. I do know that you are a huge planner. I think the never-ending story was a very interesting card of where you are. But do you have any follow-ups?
yeah. No, I think for me, the reason I had that question, the more professional one, is similar, kind of, Lucy, to even what you had just concluded in the before and after, and even what you're building on, Jen, which is you're right. Like, as with most places, these first 6 months, or I think I'm hitting my 6 month in maybe like a week or two. Um, is one that is a lot. It's a lot of observation, watching the cups, not necessarily being able to like fully manage them and juggle or prioritize in the way that I normally like to, or even plan as much, because it's a lot of information coming at you, including the team, building out a team, shaping things up from my own perspective. So asking that question, I think, is helpful to give me hope come 1 year from now or longer, to even know that that balancing system feels more right at that point. And I have full faith that will be the case, but it's kind of nice to see it play out, even in terms of the cards that you're drawing.
No, I'm just going to connect back because from five of cups to one of the cup you're
Yeah,
holding, right? That's connect back to like prioritization and focus on
yeah,
what you can control and the most important thing to work on.
exactly. And if those four other cups are broken, that's okay.
As long one cup is big enough.
Yeah, as long as one is still there, still doing its job, I can still drink from it or balance it or whatever I might be using it for.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing the updates December
Yeah,
2026,
I know.
potentially with 4 more pause in the pictures, Kaya.
Yes.
Anyway, Kaya, is there any more questions that you have?
No, those are my two main ones. No, no, no real follow-ups. I don't want to know too much. Otherwise, it'll give too many things for me to think about. So I'm prioritizing. I'll let the other side questions go.
That's a really good letting go skill set for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, Kaya.
Yes. Thank you both. It was so good to see you.
Likewise, I'll follow up later. Thank you, Kaya. See you
Yeah.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. I loved our topic so much. And then till next time, please join us for the next episode when we speak about how every decision is spiritual.